What was your first real estate deal like? A lot of these purchases are very, very expensive for someone so young, right?
Well, my first experience was I was renting an apartment and then decided I always wanted to be a homeowner because that was my dream. I grew up in a home that my dad owned. I could only afford a condo back in, one say the year, but the condo was listed for 169 and I could not afford that condo. It was a 2 bedrooms, 1 bath with 2 kids. So when I bought my house, not only did I buy something that I could not afford, I also started a business which I didn't know anything about. So I took two big risks doing that, but luckily I'm here today.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Ambition Circuit. Today, I'm joined by my guest, Mr. Mike Patel. Mr. Mike Patel, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. Me and my viewers would love to hear from you. And with that being said, I'll hand it over to you to give a brief overview, about yourself and your career history.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, thanks, Vedansh, for inviting me over. I'm really excited to talk to you, especially Gen Z. Usually I talk to seniors and older people. So looking forward to your questions. But I'm Mike Patel. I'm located in Anaheim Hills, California. I've been doing real estate for, I always say more than 25 years, but it's more than that. But I always use the term more than 25 years. And I've been doing mostly residential. I also do commercial and income properties, and I really enjoy doing it. I've seen my clients' portfolio grow because of real estate, and I always recommend that people, especially Gen Z, start early. And I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Nice, nice. Thank you. So to start us off and, talking about starting early, what was your first real estate deal like? What kind of gave you the confidence to take that leap? Because, a lot of these purchases are very, very expensive for someone so young, right?
Right, right. So you asking me like what was my when I bought my first property?
Yeah, and it could be anything, from your first home to maybe your first investment property, but what was your first experience like?
Well, my first experience was I was renting an apartment and then decided I always wanted to be a homeowner because that was my dream. I grew up in a home that my dad owned. So I started, I could only afford a condo back in, one say the year, but the condo was listed for 169 and I could not afford that condo. It was a 2 bedrooms, 1 bath with 2 kids. And at the same time I bought the house, the same year, I started a retail business, which I didn't know anything about. So when I bought my house, not only did I buy something that I could not afford, I also started a business, which I didn't know anything about. So I took two big risks doing that, but luckily I'm here today.
That's cool. That's cool.
Mhm.
So how did you, navigate your way through, the two big risks at once? How did you balance that?
Well, it was pure tenacity, and I had to make payments, and the payments at that time I don't remember, but they were under $1,000, which includes the association fee because it was a 2 bedrooms, 1 bath townhouse.
Hmm.
So first of all, I was paying the rent anyway, so I just transferred the rent to my mortgage payment,
Yeah.
so that I could afford, because I had some savings, but most of my savings went to the business that I started. So I left 3 4 months of payments just to be sure I could make it. So as
Hmm.
my business started, I put in a lot of hours, a lot of hard work, me and my wife, and we just made sure that we could survive. And it was just pure tenacity, just jump in and just went for it.
So, if you had to make the change, then would you still in another life take both of the risks at the same time? Or, would you start the business first, buy the house first? What would you put on the back burner?
Well, it depends on the situation. I mean, obviously, it's always good to have a business first, so you have some income,
Hmm.
or have one income. Like if I was married at that time and my wife was not working either and I was not working either, but I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to have my own business. So I could have started a job and bought a house, but then I would have got stuck in the house or stuck with the job. So I think at times in life you got to take some risk and just jump at it, because the higher the risk, the higher the benefit. And if you fail, you start over. If I would have lost my business, I'm sure I would have gotten a job and made payments. So but
Anyway,
the way
yeah,
I've
you
been
would
brought
have
up
done.
is take the risk. So yeah.
Nice, nice. So what got you into investing in real estate? Why not tech? Why not stocks? Why not, crypto maybe later on? But what got you into real estate?
Well, what happened was when I bought that business, it was a flower shop business, right? So I bought that flower shop business when I bought the house. And I was an engineer, but I could not work as an engineer in USA because I did not have the citizenship. So I could not get hired by engineering jobs
Oh,
back then in the 80s because everything was defense related.
Yeah.
So to cut the story short, I'm going to start a business. And my first business was a Hallmark shop, and my second business was a flower shop, which I didn't know anything about. But the reason I got into the flower business, retail flower business, is because it was a franchise. So I wanted to start not just one, but three or four or five.
Oh, locations.
So
Okay.
that was my idea of getting into this business, because it was a streamlined. And I thought, you know what, in 10 years, I'll own 10 flower shops. So it was not a flower shop business, but it was a business.
Yeah.
Apparently, the franchise did not do well, so they did not grow. But my business was doing well. So after 7, 8 years, I decided this is not what I want to do, because the income was fixed. In retail, you can only make a fixed income, you cannot go more.
Yeah.
So at that point, I thought, well, you know what, this is not something I want to do 20 years from now. So looking ahead, so I started looking for other businesses, and I could not find something. And I knew a couple of people who are doing real estate. I talked to them, and they said, in real estate, there is no limit on how much income you can make. And so then I transitioned into real estate. So after I started real estate, then I sold my flower business and got into the real
Okay.
estate. So it was a luck of draw or just chance. I never thought I'll become a realtor, and realtors have good reputations and bad reputations. But you know,
Yeah.
I'm here 25 years later, so it doesn't matter what they say. Yeah.
So what, as a younger person, as Gen Z, should we think of differently when we're planning our retail investments for long-term wealth versus for short-term gains? How do you analyze the two kind of deals differently?
Well, if I talk about the house, right? House
Yeah.
is a long-term gain. And I told both my kids, when they got married, I said, buy a house as soon as you can, whether it's 1 year after marriage or 2 years or 3 years. And they bought within the first 1 or 2 years of their marriage. So that was a good thing. So I kind of pushed them to buy real estate, whether it's their home or investment property or whatever, because you're going to pay rent anyways, might as well pay the
Yeah.
mortgage, and it's long term. And in real estate, in housing at least, whether you buy high or low, whether you pay high interest rate or low interest rate, in the long term, if you keep real estate for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you cannot go wrong,
Yeah.
because there's more to people say, oh my gosh, it's $5,000 a month, I'm not going to buy a house, rates are 7%. But if you break it down, if you look at statistics, number one, historically, home prices on average gains about 4% per year. So if you
Mhm.
buy a house in California for $1 million, in 20 years, you're going to get 4% rate of return. That's number one. At the same time, you get a lot of tax deductions, even with your residential property. I know there's a lot of tax deductions when you have rental property or commercial property, but even with residential property, you get property tax write-off, you get interest write-off, you have your homestead. So those are other advantages that a lot of people don't talk about. So, and if you do any home improvements, additions, that could be possibly deductible also. So when you make the $3,000 payment, and if you're renting for 2,000 and now you say, oh my gosh, my payment's 3,000 a month, well, you're going to get some tax breaks. So it may come down to 2,500 a month.
Yeah.
So for 500 extra, you're getting a house, and the $1 million house in 20 years in Southern California, it'll be worth 3 million,
So
pretty
much
much for
more. Yeah.
sure. So
Of
long
course.
term, it's
And
a great investment. I would highly recommend it.
oh yeah, and I've, like living through COVID, we've seen, at least in SoCal especially, the price values on houses really booming. So even I can attest that holds true.
Yeah, and that boom was not, I mean, it's not normal, but that's the market we have gone through in the last 10, 15 years. I would not call it normal, but it is
Mhm.
normal now. But like I said, real estate is always long term
Yeah.
versus stock. You mentioned stock is kind of short term. You could buy Nvidia at 100, it could go to 200 and sell it, you make money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but in real estate, that's not going to happen. You could buy a house right now, and the prices could go down. Like I mentioned earlier, I gave an example of, let's say you buy a house for $1 million, and it'll be worth $3 million in 20, 30 years, pretty much guaranteed. But there's a chance it may go down. If there's a market crash, it could go down to $900,000 or 850. That's okay, it'll come back up as long as you stay there, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you can make your payments, then it's a good investment. If you're going to be struggling to make payments, that may be a struggle. Yeah.
But I feel like struggling with payments is such a common theme nowadays because everything has gotten so much more expensive, and wages and salaries necessarily haven't caught up to that increase yet. So how should someone in Gen Z plan to budget for or plan to buy a house when the truth of the matter is a lot of the time they just can't afford it?
Hmm. Yeah, and I totally I'm aware of it. But there's several ways. One is, number one, buy below your means. For
Hmm.
example, let's say you're thinking of buying a house, right? And I want to buy a
Yeah.
house. I want a nice area, and I want a yard, and I want 3 bedrooms so I can have an office. Maybe you're going to settle for 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, like I did. 20 when I bought my house in the 80s, I bought a
Hmm.
2 bedroom, one and a half bath condo. I never lived in a condo, right? But I
Yeah.
bought. That's all I could afford. I talked to the realtor at that time and say, "Hey, look at my tax returns, look at whatever." And she said, "Okay, I'll show you a house." And she showed me a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and one house. I looked at it, I bought it. I wasn't fussy.
Yeah.
I only saw one house, I bought it. It was close to my new business. It was close to people that I knew. I knew the
Hmm.
area. And at that time, the condo was kind of new. It has tennis courts, it has swimming pool, it had a clubhouse. So I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll stay in something smaller and I'll let go three, and it worked out. So, or the other thing you could do is move out of the area. So if let's say I'm in Orange County and it's too expensive, I could move to Corona if it's possible, work allowed. And so, you know,
Yeah.
there are things you could do to downsize. Um, there are alternatives. The key thing is get into a house and start building your appreciation, start building a real estate portfolio, because time is money. So the earlier you start, the better off you are. Real estate and time go hand in hand.
So what then separates, the different kind of real estate investments one can make? So like you talked about residential versus commercial versus, income or surplus generating.
Hmm.
So what kind of separates the three deals and what they look like in action?
Well, it all depends on interest and what you want to do. 72% of all the income properties, right, which are
Hmm.
apartments, 2 bedrooms or 2 units or 4 units, or income properties, 72% of those are owned by mom and pops. That means I may own one or two, but 72% of all those are owned by mom and pop, like regular typical family. I might have another house, or I might have a duplex,
Yeah.
or I might have a fourplex. For a typical owner who does not have a lot of money but thinks, you know what, I'm 35, I'm 40, I should start thinking about when I'm 60, 65, let me invest in a property. Then you can buy another house. Let's say you go to Texas and you buy a $400,000 house with a 20% down, you need $80,000.
Yeah.
So you can buy something like that. On the other hand, there may be 4 or 5 brothers or partners and they have a very nice business, booming business, and they want to buy a commercial property. They can buy a strip center or office buildings or 16 units or 20 units. So it just depends on the strength
Hmm.
of your investment. A lot of them partner up together. A lot of the Indian community that I know of own hotels and motels.
Oh
They
yeah.
bought 40 years ago, they started with 20, 25 room motels. Now, all those after 40 years, those hotel prices have gone 3, 4, 5 times X, right?
Hmm.
And they have added on to it, or they've remodeled it. So they're selling it and buying franchise hotels, Comfort Scenes and Best Westerns and Hiltons. So, like I said, they benefited from the appreciation.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
So what made you choose, California for real estate? Why not somewhere where land is cheaper, like maybe in Ohio or even Texas or Arizona?
Well, in my case, I was living in California. I came here as a student in Orange County, so I wanted to stay here. I never thought of going anywhere else.
Hmm.
Um, but if I was to start today, let's say I was fresh out of college and I had the opportunity, or I could move to Texas or move to Iowa or Idaho or Montana, and I could find a job there, I would do it in a heartbeat, because the cost of living is cheaper compared to
Yeah.
California. It's very expensive. Property tax are expensive, fuel is expensive, utilities is expensive, property purchase is expensive. So if I had the choice and if I had to do it, I would do it. And I know a lot of my friends' kids today,
Hmm.
my friends or my past clients who bought a house 20, 30 years ago with me, their kids are going to Texas and Arizona and Utah, because homes in Utah you could find for 400,000. The same home could cost you here $1 million, same house.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is an option. A lot of people are doing that. I was raised here, and at that time, During my times, homes were not that expensive, and I totally
Mhm.
understand right now the discrepancy is too high. It was not there when I bought it, so I just bought in Orange County. The prices have gone out of whack here in Orange County, but it has gone like that in everywhere nationwide. They've gone up in Texas, in Florida, in Iowa, and Idaho. They've gone up, but especially in Southern California and Northern California Bay Area.
Mhm. So then, from your point of view, what would you say is the best state for someone young to start investing in for real estate? Buying your first two or three properties, even if your first one. What
Mhm.
state, as a young person, would you go to?
This is purely investment, not residential, right?
Purely investment. Yeah.
Um, right now, I mean, I would say, and I'm saying that based on what are the people that I know have gone to. The states they've gone to is Arizona, Utah, Washington. A lot of people have gone to North Carolina, South Carolina. They used to go to Florida. They stopped in Florida, but I think this is a great time to buy in Florida,
Hmm.
because what happened, I'm not sure a lot of people know, but in Florida, what happened was there was a glut of property last couple of years because of the hurricanes crisis
Yeah.
and because of the insurance crisis and because of the homeowners association crisis. There were at one time more than 40,000 homes for sale that were vacant. A lot of those homes got bought in the last year or so by contractors, developers, investors, and what we call sharks.
Hmm.
And also, it's still happening. I just read a report today that in Sarasota, Florida,
Yeah.
there's a homeowner that just filed a bankruptcy.
Wow.
Yeah, just news as of this morning that I read. It could be older news, but I just read that today.
Yeah.
So I would find out where that builder is and
Hmm.
maybe buy that home if it's already completed. If it's not completed, I don't want to go there because he's in trouble.
Yeah.
Uh, but which means that in the surrounding areas, and it's a fact right now, there's overbuilt homes in Texas and Florida. So if I was to go there just for those two reasons, a lot of new homes. Not only that, but a lot of the builders, because they want to get rid of their properties and get the money back, they're doing three things. One is they're offering 2.99 or 3.99% loans, even though their market is 6.8, to
Yeah.
attract buyers. The second thing they're doing is they're giving you a lot of incentives. Buy a house and we'll upgrade the kitchen, we'll upgrade the flooring, we'll upgrade the appliances. And the third thing they're doing is they're giving you closing cost. Hey, you know what? I have barely have any enough money. I don't have enough closing cost for the appraisal and the loans and the notaries
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all of that. So they're actually giving you with that, which is legal. So
So a lot
there's a
of bonuses because of the supply and demand
right. They
discrepancy.
builders want to sell so they can get the
Yeah. Yeah.
money back.
Get the money
Even if they
back.
sell at a little loss, maybe instead of 50,000 they'll make 20,000. At least they get the money back,
At least they get, yeah, that
and then they
20,000.
can start another project because they got loans too, right? They borrow money too from private companies, and they got loans, so
Yeah.
they want to pay that off. So yeah.
So then I would ask you, you mentioned coming from an immigrant background, coming to the US to study. What do you think from your immigrant background shaped your point of view on ownership or shaped your dream of wanting to own a house? Was that something that you carried with you even before you immigrated, or was that a new concept you had when you came to the US?
No, I've always wanted to be a homeowner. I always, from my childhood, the way I was brought up is I always wanted to be my own business owner. Like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. At that time, I didn't know what entrepreneur was, but in my
Yeah.
back of my head, I wanted to own my own business, whether it was a manufacturing or software or retail or whatever. So that was one thought in my mind. Even though I graduated with bachelor's, I still wanted to do a business. And then the second thing is I always wanted to own not only property or house, but more than one or two properties.
Yeah, multiple.
That was just I was brought up that way, or
Yeah. Okay, well, that's cool. I guess that's a theme I see in a lot of the Patels wanting to own many, many properties and diversify. So I guess it holds true.
yeah, it's always nice. It's the easiest way to make money. One of the
Yeah.
easiest way to make money is own real estate.
Because it just raises
It just
value as
grows
it's
on
sitting
you.
there.
On
Yeah.
average, it'll grow on you 4% per year. On
Yeah.
average, maybe there are a few years it'll dive 10% down. But if you look at the curve, if you look at the last 40-year history in USA, and this is nationwide, Of course, California may be more and
Different,
Montana may
yeah.
be lower, but
But
if you look at the
averages.
average, you will gain 4% per year guaranteed.
Hmm.
So there's your answer. At the same time, you're getting tax benefits. You get property tax write-off, interest
Yeah,
write-off. And that's with residential. When it comes to commercial property, for example, or investment property, you have depreciation, which is a big tax write-off,
yeah.
amongst
And
other deductions, which I won't
all
get
of
into.
that all of that happens even as you're sitting there. So you don't have to actively put in any work for your home to raise value. It
And there's not much work to do.
just
What are
like
you going
that
to do?
happens.
If you have a rental, he calls you up and say, "Hey, I got a leak in my bathroom. What? Call a plumber and he'll do it."
He'll do it. Yeah.
So I mean, how many problems as a homeowner? How many problems do you have? How many times does your plumbing leak, or how many times? So it's not a lot. It's very
Yeah.
easy to manage. So
So then if I had to take, a couple takeaways from our conversation today, your main advice for younger people would be always start early as soon as you can to buy a home. Always hold it for as long as you can, at least preferably 7 to 8 years. And if, money is a concern at a young age, don't be afraid to live below your means. Sacrifice the third bedroom you dream of for 2 bedrooms in a different community just so that you can at least have the title of ownership to your name.
yeah, in fact, to your point, I just sold a house to a 30-year-old.
Hmm.
Um, Sold him in city of La Habra. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, yeah.
A one bedroom, one bath condo for 450.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's just here in India. I mean, from India, he's been here only 5 years, and he's a homeowner.
Wow. Which is great, great story.
Yeah, and he asked me what I should do. I said, "Well, your budget is 600." So I said, "If you want a house, go to Corona Riverside down there
Yeah,
because
that area.
Orange County. Your other option is buy one or two or three bedroom condo."
Hmm.
And he fell in love with this one bedroom, one bath, and he said, "I'm so happy. I'm a homeowner now," and he's just been here 5 years. He's single, makes enough money, and he's happy.
Wow,
Said in
good.
4 years I'll buy another one. I said, "You buy it, but then make sure you keep this one. So when you buy another house, when you're ready for a house, try to keep this one. So now it's your rental."
Yeah.
That's the
Then you have
strategy. Yeah,
awesome, awesome.
yeah.
Well, I definitely learned a lot. I'm very thankful for you giving your time to us and to the ambition circuit. It was definitely a very insightful, meaningful conversation. So truly, I thank you for that.
Thank you, and I appreciate you inviting me over. And glad to be here.
Of course, of course. And with
Okay.
that being said, you guys, that concludes another episode of the Ambition Circuit. Stay tuned to find out who our next guest is. Bye.
Thank you.